Hey guys, Ryan at Metric Method. Today we are working on a R1M. We're going to install the JL's rear taillight kit. We're going to do the smoke taillight and the smoke signals. So we'll go step by step to show you guys how to do it. We're doing it in video format to let you guys have better detail. Instead of looking at the instructions on a paper, we thought it'd be best to go slowly, show you guys step by step how we install it. You guys can always pause it, rewind it. Okay, the tools used for the project. Here's what I used. I'll show you some variations. All right, first you do need your T30 Torx bit. That gets your seat or your rear cowl off. To remove all the plastic components, a 4mm and a 5mm. You may have the Allen keys or T-handles, they work as well. A screwdriver for those plastic rivets. You don't need a large one, size 1 is fine. I didn't use it, but sometimes getting those plastic rivets out, you may need a small flathead. A drill, of course. I use a 3mm drill bit. I mark my center punch with a something sharp. You can use a center punch, or in this case I have a test lead. I just pushed into the plastic, it's really soft. You need some type of alcohol. You need to clean the bottom of that fin before you apply the adhesive on that signal. And then to do the wiring, I use wire cutters and some wire strippers. I soldered it and I use shrink wrap to tighten it up a little bit neater. And these bolts that are recessed, it is a little hard to get to if you have an Allen key. So it is best if you have a T-handle, something that, it has clearance 5-6 inches. So like that's 5mm T-handle will work fine. In this case, I used extensions with sockets. So that is what you need to do the install. Step 1, we're going to remove the seats. In this case, the rider seat and the seat cowl or passenger seat. So for the rider seat, you're going to pull back on the seat and you're going to see the darker 5mm bolts on both sides. We're going to remove those. Now that the bolts are loose, we're going to pull up on the rear of the seat, and in like a backward upwards motion you're going to lift it from out of the tab. We're going to lay everything out nice and neat so we know the order of reassembly. Okay, for the rear cowl on these bikes, I'm going to grab a light to show you. There is a Torx bit and it's at an angle, you can see it up in there. It's a T30 Torx bit. T30 bolt. There's 2 of them that you're going to have to pull out diagonally. After the bolts have been removed, we can push this forward and lift up. Now on the M model, there is the GPS wire that is holding it in place. So we can just let that rest here while we remove 4 rivets. You can see these plastic rivets. There's 4 of them. 2 on the lower, and then up underneath here, there's 1 on each side. So I'm going to go remove those now. To remove the rivets, you get a number 1 screwdriver and rotate it slightly, not putting too much pressure on the screwdriver itself, because what happens is sometimes these push rivets the complete rivet spins. So you may have to put your finger up on the bottom. Once you have it loosened up enough, you can see when it's pressed all the way in, it expands. So what happens is, if there's a good fit on the fairing or pressure against it, sometimes it's loose in there. It won't pull out, but it's just loose. You may have to hold the base of it while you twist, or put slight pressure up on the piece of plastic. So we have 4 of those to remove. Well, the last one here. So to finish up step 1 with the seat removal, this rear cowl on the M model cannot come off unless this plastic's removed. We have already removed the 4 plastic rivets holding it on. If you look closely, it has these little tabs that get pressed under and they snap into place. So to remove it, we're going to push it down. This whole plastic piece comes off. Now it exposes the wire. It's a 4-pin connector that hooks the GPS to the bike. It has a little tab on it where you pull back and it pops out. Alright, so that removes the R1M seat cowl. If you have the standard model, the seat cowl would have just come off, and then your next step would to be remove this. Step 1 is complete. We have removed the rider seat, the rear cowl, and the plastic tray that's in between them. Alright, step 2. We're going to remove both rear side pieces. They are held on by 4 bolts and 2 rivets. The 2 rivets, we have one here on the subframe. There's a small black one there. The 4 bolts, here's one. There's one underneath. 2. And then on top, there's your 3 and 4. We're going to remove those now. The forward larger rivet and the smaller rear rivet. Those 2 are the 2 rivets that hold it on. The 2 plastic rivets are out, so we're going to take the 4 bolts off. They come off with these spacers underneath. Make sure not to lose those. I'm going to remove the top ones first, then the one underneath. And the last one I get is this one. The reason I do that last is because you can hold the side plastic while undoing it. And once it comes out, you can pull it off. It's a little harder to do if you're doing the underneath one last. So I'm going to grab this bolt and pull out to the side. Then if you can see, don't try to force it. The only thing that's holding it in now is that little tab. So you have to pull it, push it up, and work it out. And that whole side is off. Same thing for the left side. And make sure sometimes the center threaded part can come out, because these do separate. All right, a little note on these rivets. If you ever go to pull it out and it comes apart and this base remains on the bike, that's okay. They're meant to come apart. You'd have to take this off the bike And then when you just keep them together so you don't lose them. But when you're installing them, leave the threaded screw part as far as you can out. So the bottom ears, they're flexible in that they can go in the hole. Because once you insert the threaded part, it expands. So just a quick note on that. After the 2 rivets, same thing. We're going to go after the 4 panhead bolts, 4mm. Remember, make sure you're grabbing those spacers as these come out. You do not want to fish one of those out of the bike. And the last one, the silver one in the corner. Pull that out. We're going to pull out to the side. And remember, the tab, you have to lift up and out of the way. And this panel comes right off. Alright, step 2 is done. We've removed both rear side panels and have laid out the hardware exactly where they need to go back when we reassemble it. This step only pertains to the R1M owners. Your CC, the data logger, it's held on by 4 5mm bolts. Just unhook it and move that harness away. 4. Lift straight up and off. Step number 3, we're going to remove the stock turn signal license plate. To do so, we are going to disconnect the wiring first and then the 3 bolts that hold it on. And for easier access and to move the wires around, you're going to have to undo these. You're going to push, if you can see here, there's a little tab. Push back on that as you pull down. Okay, that's a little lock that keeps the wires tidy and held to the side. We're going to just pull all those wires out. And this one on the M model, I just take it off to move this harness out of the way. All right, now we have those 3 wires more accessible. We're going to disconnect all 3. There's 2 white and a black. One's the left, right turn signal. The other's for the license plate light. So we're going to find the tab that we have to press down and then pull out to disconnect. Sometimes I've had to use a little screwdriver or pin to push it in while I pull apart. All right, now is a good time to disconnect the tail light. Even if you're using your stock tail light, it does give you easy access and you're not moving or really putting much force or pressure on those wires. So you just have to push in and pull that back. Yeah, so it's a little tab facing the left side of the bike. You push down on it and pull out. Alright, if you can see down here, and here's the tool little bracket. This, it has a little grommet. Pull it straight back. There's a grommet here holding those 2 Allen wrenches. And there's a little barb, a little fitting that locks it in place. But we do need to move it to access those 3 bolts. Bracket that holds these tools, they have 2 tabs on the back. You're going to have to pinch those ears in. Alright, we can move that aside. I loosened 2 completely, and then as I loosen the 3rd bolt, I'm going to hold the bracket underneath. So as it starts releasing, I can hold it in my hand. Alright, so I'm removing that last bolt. feed all those wires through. And out it comes. Step number 4 is to loosen this lower plastic undertail slightly more. Right now you can already tell with everything that has been removed, it's pretty flimsy and it's just, you know, sitting there. There's 3 rivets we're going to take off to give us the access we need to drill the holes and run the wires. Right next to where the passenger peg mounts. If you look closely under there, there is a plastic rivet. So we need to remove those 2 small ones, and underneath this undertail there's that larger push rivet. And the last one is right under here, like a quarter turn. Okay, a small recap on what we've removed. Step 1, we've removed the seat and the cowl and the plastic piece. We've removed, second step, we've removed the side panels and laid out all the hardware. We know exactly where everything goes back together. If you have the M model, you've removed the CCU. Step 3, you've removed that stock huge turn signal license plate mount bracket. And step 4, we have removed 3 extra rivets to give us access to the points we need to get to. So that's it. You are not taking off anything else. Unless you're changing out the tail light, that is something very easy I'll get to in a minute. It's only 2 push rivets. So the next step, step 5, is let's move this whole undertail down. Let's let it sit down a few inches from the subframe so we can get to our to what we need to get here. So if you can see these tabs on the side, this undertail flexes quite a bit. What you're gonna do is pull these out while you're pushing down. And you can see those tabs, they have used to be up resting on top. They've just, after we pulled out, and you sometimes have to move the rear end a little bit because you might have the tab on your brake light sometimes interferes. All right, so we're not completely removing it and you're not putting a lot of force on it. This just gives us access to run our wires through this crack. At this point, if you're replacing your tail light, now's the time to do it. All you're gonna do is go underneath that tail light to see 2 push rivets. And to get those push rivets out, get something that can poke the center of it. You're gonna go in there and poke the center, and then you're gonna pull those rivets out. That's it. Okay, we've taken the 2 rivets out of the bottom of the tail light. Now what you're going to do, while you're kind of pressing down on the undertail, you're just going to lift up on the back. Because there's a little tab that locks it into place. Once you can pull it out, lift up, the tail light's going to move straight back through the hole that it's recessed. So since I'm fresh on how to remove it, I'm just going to install the new one. So exactly how I took it out. I'm going to go straight back into that recessed hole for the tail light, enough to get the tab to pass the plastic piece that it needs to, and then it just sits in place. I'm going to hold it in place while I push those rivets back in. That tail light is done. All right, now that step 5 is complete, the undertail is loose and resting there. If you did do the tail light, it should be installed and the wires resting for future hookup. But for right now, step number 6 is to drill and mount the turn signals. This is the wing that it's mounted to. And I'll take you to the product. Let's open those now. As you can see, it has double-sided tape. Yes, it is strong enough to hold this unit on. This is only assembled with a plastic housing for the light, as well as the plastic machined bracket that it's sitting on. So yeah, it is very light, and the wires do run in through a hole that supports it. So really, all that surface area is just to stick the light to that fin on the undertail and hold it in place. All right, looking at the undertail, we are right here at the right side fin that is coming out of the mold. This part right here is where that adhesive sticks to the underside. You know, the hole's going to be drilled about right here, and then the whole light presses on. To ensure a good, strong, long-lasting hold, it is very important that you have cleaned the underneath sides of those fins. Mostly on this left side, you'll find chain lube that flings up, as you can see. You know, we want to make sure that's a long-lasting hold. So get alcohol, some quick drying, like like nail polish remover. You can use some acetone or just any alcohol you may have to just wipe this real briefly to make sure it is free from all just dust, dirt, road, grime, and debris. Let me briefly explain how this was made to work before we drill and install it. So you have a little lip right here. If you look at it straight on, the light itself is a bit thicker than the plastic bracket. The reason being is that lip is meant to butt up with it. So when it mounts, it's going to be a really flush look right there. Alright, here's how to set up to drill your hole. Just want to make sure it fits flush, and those wires need to be inside that notch. I mount it to the fin temporarily with some painter's tape just to help me hold it while I'm able to still move it slightly to position it right where I want it to be. And then I'll hold it in place, and just underneath those wires I see the notch. That's where the wires go. So I'll put the tape right where those wires are to give me an indicator where I need to drill behind it. Let me take my light off now. So I put a little punch mark. You can see it up in that top corner there. And I put about 1 millimeter below that fin. So it's really easy to drill through this undertail, as it is very, very thin. So don't push too hard. Once that drill bit starts, I mean, it's pretty much gonna cut right through within a few seconds, so just be ready. Alright, so we have our first hole. I can remove my marking tape, alcohol onto a clean wipe, and you can see it's quick drying. When I rub on it, you can just see it just disappear real quick. That's what you want, something to just take off anything that may cause the adhesive not to hold that well. Alright, now we can feed the wire through the hole. I twist the two ends together just to have easier entry. I'll feed it through the hole. Once it's feeded up through there, you can just pull it. Signal close where it's being mounted. We are going to remove this adhesive tape. Important, do not touch this adhesive. With my other hand, I'm going to pull those wires tight. Looking at it from the top, you want to push that front corner in first, and then line up. Okay, perfect. That one is on and secure. That thing is solid. It even provides more strength to that fin. It has less free play. Front corner. And then remember, just make sure to watch exact, but for the moment, it's gonna look like it's just part of the bike. That's what's so good about this kit. Not too many people are gonna realize those are aftermarket part because it looks so clean and there's no wire showing. Step 6 is completed. We have drilled and mounted those lights. Step 7, wiring. As you can see now, you're left with a bunch of wires. If you're doing just the turn signals, you'll just see your 2 yellows and 2 blacks. If you've done the integrated tail light, we do have the extra yellow and blue coming from the tail light. So wiring can be done many different ways. It really depends on who's wiring it. Here at the shop, we're going to solder shrink wrap, and we're going to use the other ends to the connectors that we have disconnected. Let me show you on the stock fender, those opposite ends that came off with this, we're going to hook up to our aftermarket lights and plug them right back into the stock harness. If you do not want to do it that way, the kit does come with those butt connectors, a couple of those. I'm going to go ahead and cut all these and set it up to, I will post the schematics. I'll do something on the computer to list how to hook up each setup, whether you want to use those lights for brake or you want to use those lights for turn signals. Alright, I'm going to cut about 2 inches back to give me some room to use shrink wrap. Cut. Okay, so for the routing, I know right now, see, you can see it's on the outside of the subframe. I'm going to route it here on the inside, both of them, so they can all run uniform together from the back. Flare out those tabs and then hook it back up so they rest now on top. Those two go to the connector, and I always add about 3 inches. 3 inches just so you can route it and tuck it away if need be. So I'm going to cut those and get those out of here. I'm going to take these, go to the stock connectors, and like I said, I go about 3 inches longer. It's always better to have more than less, and then add a few inches and cut. I use some shrink sleeve just because we always like things looking professional and neat. So I'm going to add some shrink tubing onto these so they can be a nice snug fit. This is just a heat gun shrinking the sleeves. Okay, I've turned all those 6 wires into 3 shrunk wrap wires. It'll just look much better once together. Option to do that. I know people aren't going to see under here. Us as technicians, we love just seeing really clean work that flows. Okay, so I have consolidated all those 6 wires down to 3 shrunk wrapped wires. Left a few inches of wire at the end, and I did strip the insulation off, so those are ready to hook up. All right, right now is a good time to grab the wire we moved aside earlier for the brake light, tail light. We can route it back into place and plug it into your tail light. Okay, what I've done is I've put the black connector and the white connector in that I cut off. Make sure your key is off. Just take the key out of the bike. You don't want to turn it on and chance blowing a fuse. The reason I do that, I'm doing this to show you how to set up the blinkers. Now, I already know the wire colors. I know how Yamaha runs the black one as your left, your white one is your right. This little white one that is not plugged in, we did cut it off, but that's optional. That's up to you on what license plate light you want. I'm going to hit that left turn signal to make sure I'm getting both tail light blinker as well as the left blinker. We have the right signal in the tail light and the right signal working. Now that I know the components are working, I am going to make my permanent connections and solder all these up. I'm not going to teach you how to solder, as that's not what this video is for. Alright, I'm going to go over this dual function circuit. It turns any single LED light into a dual function. And the directions are quite simple. So your LED array, well, that's already on the bike. That's your turn signal on the fin. The two wires that come from that, you have a yellow and a black. If you have the red one, which you're most likely going to be doing it on the red. So on this kit, we're setting up the rear smoke, so we're doing the amber lights. But most of the kits that are going to use this is going to be red, this will be black. So it's very simple. You'll see the black wire goes to ground. Let's already ground that out. So left side connector is the black one. So the black one from the turn signal is going to go to the black one on the harness. And if you follow the directions, the red wire, so you can see on one end there's a single red, the other one has a red and orange. The one that has a single red wire, that one goes to the positive wire for the LED. So in most cases it's red. I'm gonna twist that. This is the only purpose of showing it. I'm gonna do a schematic. I mean, this comes with the kit, so you should get it from this. If it's confusing, that's why I'm just doing this quick tutorial on it. So now on your opposite end, you have an orange and a red. It says down here in the directions, the orange wire connect to running. It needs a constant 12 volts. It needs a steady supply, nothing with a signal. I always, on the rear kit, I get my constant from this little white connector. That's the license plate light. If you cut this sleeve back, you're going to see a blue and red, a blue wire, red stripe. If you hook this orange one to that LED is going to have a constant low because inside here is a resistor and it dims it, so it'll be a constant running. And then on the directions, this red wire connect to brake or turn. So if you have those mounted up for the purpose of a brake light, you're going to go back to your brake light wire, the one that goes back into the brake light, and connect it to the brake light, the switched brake light wire. Or if you're using it for a blinker, you're going to hook it to the signal side of the blinker. So in this case, brown. And again, this is only for purpose of showing you guys. My key's not even in the bike. I'm not going to short anything out here. So now this being hooked in to the running will make that circuit work. If you're not using it for turn signal, this red one needs to go to a switched power on the brake light. Don't worry, I'll give you all the wire colors you need to know to hook it up. Just please be careful while hooking wires up. If you don't know what you're doing, it's best to have someone that knows how to wire stuff do it. But follow the directions carefully. Double check your wires before you turn any bike on. Alright, so I have soldered with all the wires hooked up, and you've tested everything works. You can start cleaning up the wires. Alright, the wires have been cleanly routed down the side of the left subframe, and they just sit right in here where the original ones plugged in. I re-secured the CCU connector only on the M model. Reassembling all the parts. 5, we had to remove these to pull down the undertail. We're back on. So the little barb fitting coming out of the top of the taillight, it gets pressed back in. And we have the 2 bolts that you took out holding that. If it was the M model, you're going to put back your CCU. Next, I'll start with this one. Again, hand thread them. Things are going together. All we have left is the seat cowl, the seat. Alright, so on the M model, it takes 2 hands. Make sure these ones are a bit tricky to get in there. You have to get the right angle. I always hand thread them to make sure that they catch threads up. Hand start these bolts. Here's the finished complete smoked rear taillight with turn signals.